All right, everyone. Get ready for a deep dive today into building AI companies in 2024.
Oh, this is going to be good.
We're going right to the source.
Yeah.
And that is the AI plus a16z podcast.
Yeah.
They talk to a ton of founders of AI companies.
Lots of them, yeah, across different stages, different sizes.
So it's like we get to go backstage and look at all these startups and
Yeah, get a peek behind the curtain.
see what they're up to.
Yeah, and what I think is really cool about it is that it gives you such a, raw, unfiltered look at what's going on, what these founders are thinking about, what challenges they're facing. It's not just about, the technical stuff. It's really, how do you navigate a market that's just constantly changing? How do you build a team? How do you think about selling a product that maybe is unlike anything the world's ever seen before?
It's the Wild West, but with algorithms.
Totally, yeah.
The first thing that jumped out to me was AI as developer tooling.
Yeah.
Is that what we're seeing? Like a move away from flashy end-user apps?
Yeah, I think so.
And into stuff that makes the people building AI better?
Yeah, I think a lot of the companies are realizing that that's where the magic happens, is giving developers superpowers.
Yeah.
We're seeing so many tools that are streamlining coding, automating testing, helping with security analysis, and so many different things that you could imagine.
So it's not necessarily about AI replacing the developer.
Right.
It's AI becoming the developer's ultimate sidekick.
Exactly.
Which is a lot more optimistic than, robots are going to take over all of our jobs.
I know. I love it.
And that whole narrative.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of specialized skills, they also talked a lot about systems experts.
Yes.
Which kind of surprised me because it sounds very behind the scenes.
Yeah. They're kind of the unsung heroes.
Yeah. Not as cool as the person coming up with the algorithms.
Right. Exactly.
Why are they so important in AI right now?
Well, because, all of these models that are out there, these really powerful AI models, they require a ton of compute power. They require a ton of infrastructure just to train and run.
Yeah.
And so the systems experts are the ones who are building and managing the systems that allow AI to function.
So they're kind of like the architects and engineers of the AI world.
Yeah, totally.
Making sure all the algorithms have a foundation to run on.
Yeah, and it's a whole new level of complexity because it's not just setting up servers anymore, right?
Right.
We're talking about MLOps and distributed systems and hardware acceleration and all these things that weren't necessarily as crucial in more traditional software development.
So even if you aren't a super technical person, it's good to understand that side of AI because it kind of gives you a sense of what it takes to actually bring some of these solutions to market.
Absolutely.
Right. And you can sort of evaluate companies based on how well they've got that figured out.
Totally. It's like knowing that a skyscraper is only as good as its foundation.
Yeah, for sure. Now, were there any companies that were highlighted on this podcast that you thought were particularly interesting or doing?
Yeah, definitely. I think one that really stood out to me was Replicate.
Okay.
So they're doing some really interesting stuff in this world of AI model deployment.
Okay.
Essentially, they're making these models more accessible to people who aren't machine learning experts. So they have this platform where you can basically run pre-trained models. You can share them with other people. And so it's kind of like this marketplace for AI where you can just kind of find a model to do basically any task you can imagine.
So if I'm a developer and I want to incorporate AI into my apps, I don't have to necessarily know all the ins and outs. I can use their platform to find pre-built stuff.
Exactly. So it just removes a huge barrier to entry.
Nice. What about Socket?
Socket. Okay, so Socket is focused on security, which is super important.
Especially in a world where we're using a lot of open source code.
Yes. And so as people are relying on all this open source code and these pre-trained models, the risk of vulnerabilities increases dramatically.
Makes sense.
And so they're building tools that can help developers identify these risks and mitigate them.
So they're kind of like a security guard for your AI project.
Totally. Yeah.
Making sure that nothing's getting in that shouldn't be there.
Exactly.
What about Decagon?
Decagon. So Decagon is all about data, which is, the lifeblood of AI.
Yeah.
They're focused on helping developers use and manage their data more effectively. And so they have tools that make it easier to clean, transform, prepare data for use in machine learning models.
I feel like that's a big pain point for a lot of companies, right?
It's huge. Yeah. It's so time consuming. It's tedious, but it's absolutely essential.
Right. If you don't have good data, then your model is going to be garbage.
Exactly.
So they're kind of making sure that the data pipeline is flowing smoothly.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, this is all fascinating, but let's be real. Most of us aren't developers, so why should we care about all of these behind-the-scenes tools and systems?
That's a great question. I think it's valuable to understand because it gives you this window into like what the future of AI holds.
Yeah.
Even if you're not building it yourself, knowing how it's being built and what the challenges are can help you make better decisions about the tech that you use and the companies that you support.
I see. So it's kind of like AI literacy for the modern world.
Totally.
All right. So now I want to shift gears a bit and talk about the actual companies that are being built.
Okay, yeah. Because if you're thinking about starting an AI company, like how do you sell this stuff?
Yeah, like is it different than selling traditional software? Is it harder to sell?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main difference is just that like your customers might not understand it as well. And so you have to spend a lot more time like building trust and educating them about what AI is and what it can do for them.
Yeah, it's like trying to sell someone a spaceship when they're used to driving a horse and buggy.
Right, exactly.
You've got to like bridge the gap.
Totally, yeah.
So how do you do that? Like how do you explain the value of something as complex as an AI solution?
Yeah, I think one approach is just to like really focus on the problem that you're solving, right?
Okay.
And like how your product can help them achieve their goals instead of getting bogged down in the technical details, you know? Like, don't talk about your machine learning algorithms. Talk about how it's going to save them time or reduce cost or whatever it is.
Show them the what before the how.
Exactly.
And I think sometimes you even have to educate them on the problem.
Right?
Like they might not even know that there is a problem that AI can solve.
Totally. Yeah.
So it's like creating that aha moment where they're like, oh, I didn't even realize this was costing me money.
Exactly.
And then you can be like, well, I've got just the AI solution for you. Speaking of money, is pricing an AI product more difficult than traditional software?
Yeah, I think it can be because with traditional software, you often have these like established pricing models based on features or like user licenses.
Yeah.
But with AI, it's not just the software, right? It's also the data, the algorithms, the ongoing training and maintenance.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a service.
Right. So you're not just selling the software.
Right.
You're selling the intelligence behind it.
Exactly.
So how do you even put a price tag on that?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
Right.
And I think some AI companies are starting to experiment with different pricing models, like charging based on usage or performance or like the actual value generated for the customer.
Interesting.
So it's definitely still an evolving area.
Okay, so we've got educating the customer, figuring out pricing.
Right.
And on top of that, you have to actually build the thing.
I know, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
But speaking of building, you know, we can't forget about the importance of knowing your users.
Yeah, that seems to be a theme across all businesses.
It is, but I think it's especially important in AI because, like, these solutions have to be so tailored to the specific problems and workflows.
You can't just build a one-size-fits-all AI, right? It has to be, it's like a custom-tailored suit.
Yeah, totally.
So why is that so important in AI?
Well, because like AI has to be deeply integrated with the way that people work, right? Like you need to understand their needs, their pain points, their goals, and like the context in which they're using your product.
So it's about building something that actually solves a real problem for real people.
Exactly.
So it's like human-centered design, but applied to the world of AI.
Totally.
How do you go about understanding your users in this world?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it does come down to data, right?
Okay.
But it's not just about collecting massive data sets.
Okay.
It's about collecting the right data and using it to like really understand user behavior and preferences. So like observing how they're interacting with your product, gathering feedback, and just like constantly iterating based on what you learn.
So it's like a constant learning process, both for the AI and for the company building it.
Totally.
Is it just data or is there more to it than that?
Yeah, I think it's also about empathy, right?
Yeah.
Like putting yourself in the user's shoes and really trying to understand their perspective.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So like conducting user interviews, observing them in their natural environment, and just really listening to their feedback.
So it's like a mix of like data science and good old-fashioned human connection.
Exactly.
Okay, so you got to know your users. And then you've got to choose the right AI tools to build the solution, right?
Yeah.
Because there are so many different AI models and techniques out there.
I know, it's overwhelming.
It's very overwhelming.
Yeah.
Where do you even begin?
Right. I think it's important to remember that there is no like magic bullet.
Yeah.
The best approach is to start with like a clear understanding of the problem you're trying to solve and then explore the different models and techniques that might be suitable.
So it's like finding the right tool for the job.
Exactly.
You wouldn't use a hammer to screw in a light bulb.
Right.
So what are some things you should be thinking about when you're choosing different AI tools or models?
Yeah, I think accuracy is obviously important, right? You want a model that can actually perform the task effectively.
Yeah.
But you also have to think about efficiency, like how much computing power does it require?
Okay.
How long does it take to train?
Makes sense.
And then also like ease of implementation. Can you actually integrate it into your existing systems?
So it's like a balancing act
It is.
of like performance, practicality, and ease of use.
Totally. And I think you also have to be willing to experiment
Okay.
because this field is constantly evolving.
Yeah, that's true.
So what's considered cutting edge today might be outdated tomorrow.
Yeah.
So stay curious, keep learning, and be willing to adapt.
It's like you have to be flexible and adaptable to thrive in this world. Okay, so let's say you've figured out all that.
Right.
You know your users, you've chosen your tools.
Yeah.
What kind of team do you need to build this thing? Like if you were starting an AI company tomorrow,
Oh, that's a great question.
what kind of people would you be looking for?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you need the AI researchers, right?
Yeah, like the brilliant mind.
The brilliant minds who are pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Yeah.
But it's not enough to just have the algorithms.
Right.
You need people who can actually translate those algorithms into real-world products.
Okay.
So you need skilled engineers who can build and deploy your solutions.
Got it.
But you also need people who understand the business side of things,
Okay.
like product managers who can define the roadmap and prioritize features.
So we've got researchers, engineers, product people, anyone else.
Well, remember what we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
You need to know your users, right?
Yeah.
So you also need people on your team who understand the specific industry you're targeting. So if you're building an AI solution for healthcare, you need people who understand the complexities of healthcare.
Okay.
If you're targeting finance, you need people with financial expertise.
They're kind of like translators, right?
Yeah, totally.
They can speak the language of your target market
Exactly.
and sort of bridge the gap between this complex technology and the real world application.
I love, translators. I
Translator.
think that's a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
And you know what's cool is that the most successful AI teams tend to be what they call T-shaped.
What's it?
So they have deep expertise in their respective areas,
Okay.
whether that's research or engineering or product.
Yeah.
But they also have like a broader understanding of the AI landscape as a whole.
So they can see the big picture and how all the pieces fit together.
Exactly.
It's not just individual brilliance. It's like collective intelligence.
Yes, exactly.
It's like all these different minds working together.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So now I want to shift gears just slightly and talk about something that's always fascinated me. And that's like the difference between doing AI research in academia versus actually running an AI company.
Yeah.
Because most of us picture AI geniuses working in labs.
Right.
You know, whiteboards with tons of equations all over them.
Totally.
What's the real difference between those two worlds?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a huge shift in mindset.
Okay.
Researchers in academia, they're really focused on pushing the boundaries of knowledge, trying to answer like these fundamental questions about AI, like how does it work? What can it do?
So they're like explorers.
Yes, exactly.
Charting new territories.
I love that.
But founders, they have to build something that people actually use.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's like discovering a new element versus figuring out how to use that element to build something useful.
I love that analogy.
Right. It's two totally different things.
It is, and the transition can be really challenging.
How so?
Well, because if you've spent your whole life in academia, you're used to this very specific way of thinking.
Right.
Right? It's about exploration, discovery, publishing your findings.
Yeah.
But then you start a company and suddenly you're also thinking about market research and product development and marketing and sales and fundraising and hiring.
It's like a whole different world.
It is, yes.
It's a whole different ball game.
Totally.
So it's not just about the science. It's about the vision, the passion, the entrepreneurial spirit.
Absolutely.
And it's also about being comfortable with like ambiguity, uncertainty.
Yeah, the world of startups is messy.
Right. You have to be able to pivot.
Exactly.
And change direction if necessary.
Totally.
Speaking of pivoting, I want to talk about the founder's journey itself.
Okay.
So knowing all this, Starting an AI company sounds kind of like a roller coaster.
It is? Yeah.
Any advice for aspiring AI entrepreneurs out there?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, you have to be resilient.
Okay.
It's not going to be easy. You're going to face a lot of challenges, so you have to be able to bounce back from setbacks.
So like a thick skin?
Yeah, totally.
And what else?
You also have to have this insatiable appetite for learning.
Okay, a curious mind.
Yeah, because this field is moving so fast.
Yeah.
You have to constantly be learning and adapting.
What about failure? I feel like that's a big part of the startup world.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Like most successful AI founders have stories of failures and pivots along the way.
So it's like failure is just a stepping stone
Totally.
on the path to success.
I love that.
It's like you can't let it get you down.
Yeah.
You got to keep going.
You have to learn from it and keep going. And remember, building a company is not a solo endeavor. You need to build a team of people who are passionate about your vision.
Right.
Who are willing to work hard and support each other.
It's like finding your tribe.
Yeah, totally.
Like your people who are going to go on this journey with you. And what about the AI community as a whole? I feel like that's a big part of it too.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? It's not just about you and your team. It's about the broader community.
Yeah. The AI community is amazing.
Okay.
It's full of people who are so willing to help and share their knowledge.
So it's like this giant brainstorming session.
Totally.
Where everyone's pushing each other to be better.
Exactly. So don't be afraid to reach out, ask questions, and learn from others.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like cutting edge technology meets human ingenuity.
Totally.
With this big dash of entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, I love it.
So what's next for AI?
Oh, man, that's the big question, right?
Yeah, where do we go from here?
I mean, I think the most exciting thing is that it still feels like early days.
Okay.
We're just scratching the surface of what's possible.
So much more to come.
Yeah.
It feels like we're at the beginning of a new era or something.
I know, it's so cool.
And we get to be the ones to decide what happens next.
I know, it's a huge responsibility though, right?
Yeah, for sure. We have to make sure that we're building AI that's beneficial for humanity.
Yeah.
That solves real problems and that creates a better future.
So it's not just about the technology, it's about the values that guide it.
Totally.
It's about making sure that AI is used for good.
Yeah, we have to be mindful of the potential risks and unintended consequences.
Yeah, of course.
And really work together to make sure that doesn't happen.
It's like we're walking a tightrope.
Mm-hmm.
But the view from up here is incredible.
It is, yeah.
So in our deep dive into the AI plus a16z podcast, one of the things that struck me was just how much is happening.
Yeah.
Like all these different companies focused on so many different aspects of AI.
Totally.
Like it's not just one thing.
Yeah, it's such a diverse landscape. We talk about companies working on developer tools, infrastructure, security, data management.
It feels like there's an AI solution for every problem out there.
Totally.
And it's only going to get more diverse.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. As AI becomes even more accessible and powerful.
I think we're going to see even more niche applications, tailored to specific industries and use cases.
It's not just the big tech companies either, right?
No, not at all.
There's plenty of room for startups and smaller companies to innovate.
Absolutely.
That's one of the things I love about this field.
Yeah.
It feels like anyone with a great idea can make a difference.
Totally.
So for our listeners out there, even if you're not planning to start an AI company, understanding all of these trends is still really important.
Absolutely.
Because it helps you navigate this world that's increasingly driven by AI.
Exactly.
Whether you're evaluating new tech, making investment decisions, or just trying to stay ahead of the curve.
Totally.
It's like having a roadmap for the future.
I love that.
To help make sense of all these changes that are happening so quickly.
Yeah, and I think the best way to learn about AI is to just dive in and start exploring.
Yeah.
There are so many resources available online, like free courses, tutorials, open source tools.
It's like a giant playground for the curious.
It is.
So don't be afraid. Experiment. Have fun.
Exactly.
Who knows? You might just discover your next big passion.
Totally.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of building AI companies. We covered a lot of ground today.
We did.
AI developer tooling, systems experts, understanding your users, selling AI products.
It was a great conversation.
And of course, the philosophical implications of AI and making sure that we build technology that actually benefits humanity.
Yeah.
I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about.
I hope so.
If you want to go even deeper, I highly recommend checking out the full AI plus a16z podcast.
Totally.
They've got tons of great conversations with experts on all sorts of AI topics.
Yeah, it's an amazing resource.
It is.
Yeah.
But before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
The AI landscape is constantly changing, but one thing remains constant, and that's the power of human curiosity.
Totally.
The drive to push the boundaries of what's possible.
I love that.
So keep exploring, keep learning, and never stop asking questions.
Absolutely.
The future of AI is in our hands.
Yeah.
And it's up to us to shape it.
Totally.
Into something extraordinary.
Couldn't have said it better myself.